In the wake of yesterday's shooting and the Atlanta Spall shootings last week, President Biden is calling on Congress to pass legislation to reduce gun violence.
The United States Senate, I hope some are listening, should immediately pass the two House-passed bills that close loopholes in the background check system.
The call comes as the Senate Judiciary Committee held a previously scheduled hearing on gun violence this afternoon. Several witnesses, including a woman whose mother was shot by a home invader and a former Texas state representative who lost her parents in a mass shooting at a Luby's, spoke to the committee. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer promised to bring the legislation from the House to the Senate floor.